Welcome back again to Spotlight, where we feature the University of Central Arkansas's College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. I'm Donna Lampkin-Stevens. And today I'm happy to be joined by my old friend, Morton Brown, who is a UCA alumnus and public artist, who is going to be very involved with our Eclipse Festival. So welcome back, Morton. It's been a long time.
Thank you. Yeah, it has. I'm glad you arranged this eclipse for me to come back down here. It's very nice of you.
Yeah, it's all in my hands. So Morton, let's talk a little bit about your background first. You grew up in Clinton, and tell me about your time at UCA and.
Yeah, I grew up in Clinton. I went to UCA, I guess, 1992 through 96. And then after that.
As an art major, BFA.
Yep, BFA in painting.
With Pat Larson.
Pat Larson, Gene Hatfield. We had to do internships. Gene Hatfield was one of my internships, and it was amazing. Yeah, graduated with a painting degree, went on to get my graduate degree at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts.
Why did you choose that?
I am just a painter. I mean,
that's the place to go for painting.
Well, yeah, it is actually the oldest art college in the nation. It's very traditional, but in their graduate program, they've got a little bit more conceptual in their graduate program. So it was a good mix for me. And the artist Sidney Goodman, whom I knew from my work at the Art Center. We have a lot of his drawings at the Arkansas American Museum of Fine Arts. I knew that artist from that work here, so I wanted to go work with him. And so that was another thing that just sort of cinched it. So. And
looking back, I mean, we're going to get into some more particulars, but what did you learn with your degree from UCA in art? I mean, it sets you off on your path.
Well, it did. I mean, like most people, growing up in Arkansas in these small towns, you might have an art teacher, but it's just not very much involved. You don't know about oil painting or encaustic painting or anything like that. And coming to UCA, between art history and the studio classes, I mean, you're just opened up to a world that you just didn't know existed. And what's amazing is the teachers, at least when I was here, if you saw someone in some art history book, painting a certain way, they knew how to do that. So you could just almost use it as a recipe book, the art history book.
Oh, yeah.
To take it in the studio class and just really go to town, which is what I did, and just fell in love with it. That lifelong learning of teaching yourself over and over again to try new things in painting, I think lends itself well to that. There's not much overhead in painting, unlike sculpture or something like that. So you can afford to experiment and stuff like that. So I just always loved that and the immediacy of it.
And so I believe it was about 2007. You had your MFA, and we were starting Arts Fest, the Conway Alliance for the Arts, and Gail Seymour, my friend and colleague and your former professor.
Right.
So how did she reach out to you? Because you did the Aurora Rising mural in downtown Conway.
Right. Well, Gail and I have stayed in touch all these years, and she has, sort of followed my career from being an artist to an public art manager for, a major city, and managing a lot of other artists in creating public art. So she knew that I could do murals, but she also knew that I was into other things like giant inflatable sculpture, in which, it's a small, group of us that know about these things. And she's sort of contacted me again to kind of come down and try to bring some spectacle to this eclipse event cycle that you have going on here.
So let's talk a little bit. Well, let's go back first to Aurora Rising. What was your and it's the mural on the building in Simon Park.
Right.
Okay. So what was your vision of that?
Well, back then, what we were calling that was sort of like a community mural. So it wasn't.
It was the first one, wasn't it, in downtown Conway?
There were some others before that, but I'm not sure exactly if they had any kind of process that involved the community at all. I'm not quite sure.
I don't think so.
Right.
I think yours was kind of the first one because you had people who participated.
Right. Yeah. I had students that I was actually teaching a class, a studio class here on campus, and those students actually were able to just work soup to nuts. They helped do the grid, the priming, the painting, and all that kind of stuff. But we also had some elementary school kids who, we didn't want them to climb on scaffolds, but they could kind of come and paint on the bottom levels. But even before that, just to conceptualize it, I actually had, I built a little website where I could talk to folks down here. We had a couple of meetings before that I would come down. We had some meetings. And so I treated it more like this was your mural and let's talk about what is Conway, what is its history and its hopes for the future and that kind of stuff. And I sort of embodied that into that painting. And that's something that I did in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh a lot too. Had artists collaborate with communities to make community murals.
Truly public art.
Yeah, it's public, but it's even, you don't have to have an open process anytime, you want to make art. Like you can actually, you can just go buy a sculpture and install it someplace, but I think in certain instances, I think it's purposeful and meaningful if the community has some sort of involvement in the making of it.
Yeah. And you were here for the unveiling, as I recall. Yeah.
Yep.
So, and it stood and that is 17 years old.
It's been 17 years. It still looks good.
It does look
Thank
good.
goodness for clear coat.
Yeah, really. So, so you go back to Pennsylvania and you start, teaching and doing some other things.
Yeah, I don't ever think about it until someone asks me, but I sort of took a left turn. I went back to Pittsburgh and became the city's public art manager for about 6 years. And I oversaw the city's collection of public art at that time. So I had to sort of, actually here, A Song to Nature, that sculpture that was here on campus back in the 90s, I think it's still here, that Gail Seymour had commissioned.
Oh, yeah.
They had a Save Outdoor Sculpture person come and talk to us students about conservation, and that's when I first heard about it. Then I worked at the Arkansas Art Center for a while, learned more about conservation. Then as the city's public art manager in Pittsburgh, I had to implement a lot of conservation. They had probably 200 pieces, that some of which were 200 years old. The city has not maintained a lot of it over the years, so I spent a lot of time and energy basically conserving the artwork that was there and commissioning some new works of art just as an administrator. So I did that for a few years.
Did you keep doing art at the time, or was it hard to do both?
It was hard to do both.
Yeah.
I still did at some point in time, but as you know, it's, you work 9 to 5 over here and then, whatever. But I ended that after a time around 2015. Then I started consulting and other projects and managing other artists and creating public art. Got back in at that time making my personal studio work again, had some shows and all that kind of stuff. Then fast forward, got back into teaching at Robert Morris University, which has been really nice. And it's a full-time job, as you know, as you do here, but it allows me to kind of keep my studio going and my practice going. So I had the time and I was able to come down and do this residency.
What are you teaching?
Oh goodness, right now this semester I'm teaching 2D design, 3D design, and concept studio.
Okay.
And actually it's pretty cute, if you will. My concept studio, which is all about developing concepts and realizing them, my students have followed the process here, and they have mimicked my entire proposal mechanism by which I got this gig with UCA. So they have learned to actually design their giant inflatables, along with budgets and working with fabricators and the whole nine. And they also designed some dog costumes for your Barcanalia.
Oh, good.
So we'll get to look at those, I think, in my lecture
Great.
this week.
So, so Gail Seymour is our big grand thinker,
Yeah.
great project ideas, and she contacted you when and said what?
It was many months ago about this project. She contacted me and asked me if I had the time and wherewithal to be an artist in residence. And I immediately said yes. And then she said that she would like to see, something like the giant inflatables that I had created before in Pittsburgh, had managed the creation of, and was I game for doing something like that, because she could see, that sculpture creating spectacle and interest and help, spreading the word of what's happening, but it would be a way to connect with kids too.
Oh yeah.
And
you had an interest in inflatables from
Yes.
way back.
Yes, in 2006, when I was, I skipped a bunch of my resume, which is fine, but let's go back to 2006. I was part of a nonprofit organization that I helped create that did public art. One of the things we were asked to do then was to create some kind of art, much like what we're doing down here, that could travel around to celebrate the different cultural institutions like the Carnegie Museum of Art and the Andy Warhol Museum throughout the entire year. They had this special year, they wanted to highlight all the arts organizations. So I pitched the idea of giant inflatable sculpture, and local foundations gave us enough money to do 10 of them.
Wow.
So we had a whole army of people that deployed these things on rooftops and car garages. We even had them blow up at the Major League Baseball season opening. Around it, around the Carnegie. So we did that in 2006 successfully for the entire year, and those are the inflatables, 2 of which you borrowed here, Gail did, for Arts Fest.
Yes.
Between '07 and now, whatever
Yeah.
year that was. So yeah, I had done that a lot. She knew about it, Gail did, and asked if we could do something like that here. And I was like, well, yes, all we need is money. She was able to get some grants to pay for it, some states grants, and even some NASA funding that came down through some state organizations, which is amazing.
And so she didn't tell you anything beyond just spectacle and giant inflatables?
Yeah, I mean, we were thinking about it. Since we knew that we wanted to have part of the residency involve some local elementary schools, we were thinking, because I also have, some of my personal art deals with superhero images and stuff like that, maybe it's just a giant superhero, and which I just totally thought would be incredible. It's just that those inflatable things that you normally see don't lend themselves to humanoids. They're usually like Michelin Man, or they're real thick because the air needs to come up. So it was a trick of engineering to get the fabricator to create it in that humanoid form. But the minute the fabricator said, yes, we can do this, then that's when I went ahead and completed that type of design for the superhero kind of figure.
So, and it's Luna, a woman superhero who stands on the moon.
Yeah.
30-foot inflatable sculpture. How did you come up with the name?
Well, I mean, I just started thinking about the genesis of this whole thing, which is the eclipse. And, there's basically 3 characters in the eclipse: the sun, the moon, and the earth. And I initially started thinking of like moon goddess type, Artemis, Demeter, Luna. And so I started there, but then in talking with Gail and fleshing out this workshop idea and the kids, we started thinking more along the lines of a superhero. So I kept the name, I kept the moon, and then I really just kind of left it mysterious. I didn't really write the story of Luna further until just recently, before we sort of came down here, and I wanted to explain to the kids, basically what this thing is or what it does. And so we tied the idea of the superhero together with the workshop idea, in which kids sort of embroidered on their own superhero capes. So that was a way to kind of connect them to the superhero figure, and then back to the eclipse in sort of a tangential way. But basically, she is the protector of celestial events, and she's here to usher in the eclipse and make sure it works properly, and fight off evil if she has to, that kind of thing.
And today, as we shoot this, you have been at Morton Intermediate School, and there was an eclipse assembly, and tomorrow you're going to Carolyn Lewis Elementary School in Conway for the same sort of thing.
Yep.
So tell us about what was the eclipse assembly like, and how old are these kids?
Oh, these were through 3rd through 5th grade.
Okay.
It was the whole school. It was a lot. They were really well behaved. I was completely taken aback by how well behaved they were and interested. I mean, you'd think they'd be interested by something like this, but you never know.
And I mean, have they known a lot about the eclipse coming up, or was this sort of their introduction?
So they did. Another bright idea of Dr. Seymour, she asked me to create a coloring page, or it's actually an anti-coloring page, where it's like a coloring book, but I don't finish it. I draw part of the picture, and then you make your own superhero. So we got that to them early. The schools have had it for a couple of months. They had already drawn their own superheroes and had them on display for us. So they knew a lot about what was going on and what Luna was. But it was really comical. The principal told me that I missed a great point, or a great picture, because when she took the first group out, when I was inside doing the workshop, the other kids were getting to tour Luna. So when they brought the first ones out, they came around the corner, and she said they were looking down at the ground. And then they walked around the corner, they saw it was 30 feet tall, and they just gasped and just were really taken aback. So I think mission accomplished. I think they knew she was coming. They had no idea she was that tall. And I was able to kind of give them a little bit more of her background, and then do the workshop with them. So I think it was pretty impactful.
So Morton, tell me how this process works. You designed it, and then you turn it over to these fabricators.
Yeah.
How does that work?
There's a company called Inflatable Images, and they're in Cleveland, Ohio. So they're about 2 hours away from where I live in Pittsburgh. I used them back in '06.
Okay.
And they make giant inflatables for every kind of car play. You know, you've seen them in car dealers sports teams have them. But artists have them too. Paul McCarthy is one of the artists they worked with, and there are a handful of others that they've made really monumental stuff, like really huge stuff, like hundreds of feet long and stuff like that. So they're used to working with artists a little bit. They're used to working with me, but it's real simple. And this is something I, was talking to the kids in the assembly about today. I showed them images of how, well, this is my drawing, and you can draw too. And then I just handed it over to these guys, and they put it in their computer and spit it back out and say, is this okay? When they make it look like an inflatable, and you say, yes, it's approved, then they go through their manufacturing process, and you get a 300-pound duffel bag on the other end that plugs into the wall and blows up.
So that's literally how it works?
That's literally how it works.
Wow.
And the kids were like, nuh-uh,
So you just plug it in?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, this one, I actually, in hindsight, I made this one really complicated, more so than it probably should have been. I wasn't actually sure they could make it stand up on that ball on the moon. They did, but it's a lot more complicated to erect and keep erect now than the other ones. Like the other ones I did was just like a giant squirrel, and it's a bulbous shape, and that one you could just plug in and all day long. This one takes about 3 people to fluff and make sure it's right and all that kind of stuff.
But as long as you have the manpower, it's
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So Luna is going to be, she was at Morton today. She's going to be at Carolyn Lewis tomorrow.
Yep.
And so how long does it take to just unplug and deflate and then the other?
You have to watch, once you get it in plate, she has 12 tethers. Most of these things, this is how complicated she is. Most of them have about 4 tethers. She has 12. So they're little flat straps that come down to the ground as stakes or sandbags. So what you do is you show up early, you get her all set, you blow her up, make sure everything's cool, then you just drop it.
Okay.
And then when you need to pop it up again, it'll just pop back up.
Okay.
Generally, if it hasn't moved too much. So once she's installed, it's like 40 seconds she goes up.
Wow, that is impressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have a repeat tomorrow at, on April 2nd at Carolyn Lewis Elementary School. You also had a STEAM workshop, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math.
Very good. You did that better than me.
So how was that?
That was great. So Dr. Michelle Buchanan of UCA came with me, and she sort of did like a hard science lesson. She had sort of a practical effects of some sticks with stars on them, like sort of like fishing poles, and had the kids kind of walk around and make like constellations. And she kind of pointed out to them like how celestial bodies kind of interact and move. They're moving all the time, and that's just something that we don't normally think of when we just look up at the sky. So she led that part, which is the first part of the workshop. Then what I had students do is I had brought little superhero capes and embroidery hoops. And had solicited their birthdays and their birthplace. And I put that into a website and got the star field pattern from their birth date and birthplace, threw a grid over that, and then had some of that fabric interfacing Pellon, you know what that is? So it already has like a 1-inch grid on it. We had them draw their star points from their star field pattern as per the grid, so they learned to count 1 over and 2 up or whatever. Then they drew lines to connect the dots in however manner they wanted to make their constellation, which becomes their superhero symbol. So we applied that Pellon to the back of the embroidery hoop, and they actually sewed with glow-in-the-dark yarn, no less.
They did all that today?
Yeah, all today.
Oh.
Made their little symbols, ripped the Pellon off, and they have little superhero
personalized
capes.
capes forever.
Yeah.
That's tremendous.
Yeah.
And you've done the same thing for the Conway students tomorrow.
Going to tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. And there were 34, I think, in today's class and 10 tomorrow. So I think we're ahead of the curve.
Okay.
We got it down now. But yeah, it was a lot, but they were able to do it.
And I'm sure that you could just tell the excitement among these kids as the day went on.
They were really excited. Some, finished really quickly. Some finished, took a little bit longer, but they were all proudly wearing their capes.
Yeah.
And when I told them it will glow in the dark, that just really, they're like, no way. I'm like, yep. So we'll see. I hope
So-
the yarn works, but yeah.
So yeah, building all this excitement. So
Yeah.
so Luna will be at Carolyn Lewis Elementary tomorrow,
Uh-huh.
and then on Wednesday, April 3rd, really all afternoon into the evening.
Yeah, at
Tell us
Wingate.
at Wingate, the south entrance. So Luna will just be there for people to see and
Yep.
come take pictures with, and just building the excitement for the eclipse.
Yep.
And also on Wednesday, you're doing a class visit with Holly Law's Contemporary Media.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and just about the Luna story.
Yeah, those are college students. So I'm going to adapt a lot of my talk to them around how artists work with fabricators. So I'm going to kind of back up a little bit and show them my process. I'm actually going to have the artist who is on the staff of the fabricator company come in through Zoom.
Oh, great.
So he's going to
Great.
talk to them about his perspective too.
Okay.
And it's really cool. It'll show them sort of on his end how he takes a two-dimensional drawing from me, the artist, but textures it and makes it 3D, but then takes those patterns and gives them to the fabric section of the fabricator, who actually sews it together. So they can actually map it, from the drawings that he does to actually cut the pieces and sew them together.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
And then you're doing a public lecture on Wednesday, April 3rd in Wingate 167 about all of this.
Yeah, I'm going to take it a little bit further in that period, I think, and I'm going to talk about Luna in the way that I just described, but I'm going to back up a little bit more because I think there will be, perhaps some downtown folks and some, folks outside of UCA
Oh, yeah.
that may have, either worked with Gail or just done their own sort of public art commissions. So I'm going to take that opportunity to share a little bit more of my career experience and kind of walk them through, like, here's how you can make an inflatable. It can have this kind of impact on the community. Here is how it's like when you're doing more permanent things and what kind of maintenance and that kind of stuff you need to sort of think about that way too. So I'm going to kind of just show them just like the gamut of public art projects that I've worked on
So
to kind of help in a larger way.
back to the mural downtown, Aurora Rising. What kind of ongoing maintenance is there?
Well, in some cities you have graffiti. You have paint that just breaks down. I mean, one day we will have to touch that up or destroy it because it's just not going to last forever.
It's not going to last forever.
Yeah, but yours, I mean, I looked at it, it looks, it's just not getting a lot of direct sunlight all day. And that clear coat and the paint that I used was good, really good. So it's almost perfect. But
I mean, 17 years in, is that unusual?
no, I mean, it's a good long time.
Okay.
But no, I mean, usually about 20 years, it's going to start looking kind of bad, but yours is looking still really nice. So you may get a really long time out of it.
And so what percentage of murals get touched up versus destroyed?
I don't know. It depends. Like in Philadelphia, the two murals I painted there back in the late 90s, they contacted me in the early 2000s and asked if they could paint over them. And I said, sure. I mean, I'm not living there anymore,
Yeah.
But for them, they when I worked there in the late 90s, they had 2,700 murals in the city.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sure they have quadrupled that now.
Yeah.
But what they do is communities change.
Yeah.
In those cities, it's not always the same group of people. And so they want new murals. And when the murals get bad or, get in disrepair, they can choose whether they get the same artist back and retouch
I
it
see.
or just do a new artist, new process. And that's really nice sometimes. You can work with a new artist, a new community. So there's all kinds of reasons why, you do it. I mean, sometimes you have water, like the one I did in Clinton. We resurfaced the entire building's membrane. It has a flat roof. We did a new rubber membrane, but there's still some kind of water infiltration on the back, and it's just popping it off. Things like that happen over time, and you just have to decide, if you have the funds to retouch it or just, let it go.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so then on Thursday, April 4th, I'm looking forward to our eclipse kickoff
Yep.
in the ESTA Stadium. So tell me what's going to happen with Luna there.
I'm not real sure yet. I'm going to be there, I think, with others.
Which, by the way, we're having the Zydeco
Yes.
Sean Ardoin line dance. It's going to be a big deal Thursday afternoon.
Yes, there's all kinds of events going on. I think I'm supposed to say a few words. I'm not quite sure exactly what the event events are around the speeches part. But yes, there's a Zydeco going on. Luna's going to be out on the field.
On the field.
On
Good.
the field,
Okay,
full
good.
glory. We'll have to use sandbags, no stakes.
Yeah,
put her down. But yeah, that's going to be a really big, fun time, I think.
Okay. And then on Friday, April 5th, she will move to the north entrance of Wingate, kind of for the same. Well, that's what. Well, this says pending.
No. Friday night, I believe she's going down to Art Walk.
Art Walk.
Art Walk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
Conway Art Walk. So she'll be downtown Conway.
Yeah, she's going to be in Conway Art Walk. Yeah.
Do we know where?
Oak and Chestnut Streets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're blocking off the streets, and I'm told there's 2 light poles we can plug into right there. So I think it's going to be right there.
And then on Saturday, April 6th, she will be inside Reynolds again for the Rocket Man Elton John experience. Okay, so she'll be there for people to.
Yep, right in the lobby.
In the lobby of Reynolds.
Yep.
And then on Sunday, April the 7th, from 12 to 5, the Conway Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, it's in that little patio adjacent to the chamber in downtown that's right next to the road. So she's going to be really.
Where the Christmas tree is.
Yes, exactly.
Rogers Plaza.
That's correct.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yep. So it should be really visible there.
Oh, yeah.
And really nice.
And so we're just building excitement all week with this. And then on the big day is Monday, and so she will be at the Barcanalia,
right?
Not at Esta Stadium.
At the Barcanalia.
At the Barcanalia, which is unless weather changes for us, it's going to be in the lawn of the College of Business.
Right. Yeah, she'll be out about halfway down the lawn. There's that round place in the sidewalk where there are benches, memorial benches. She'll be right there.
Okay. And so what kind of feedback are you getting from kids and adults? And I mean, are you feeling the excitement build? And
yeah, I mean, it's just if nothing else, it's something you don't see every day, and
that's right.
It really isn't. And like I said, you've seen, people have seen some of these things at car dealers sometimes or sports stadiums, but I think she's an incredibly different type of character, especially with the Luna Moth wings and everything, that she definitely stands out, and people are just really getting a real kick out of it. We get there at the schools early enough where she's up while the school buses come in.
Oh, great.
They want us to stay until everybody leaves again, so everybody gets a chance to see her. So so far so good. Everyone is really excited and mission accomplished.
So what went into the decision to make her a woman?
That was just me, I guess. Just because of, I guess it just came from like the Roman, Greco-Roman kind of moon goddesses. I think is kind of where I started with that. I don't know. That's just kind of where it started and kind of where it stayed. I just didn't consider doing anything else.
And where is she going from here? I mean, she could go.
She could go anywhere. That there's air. I started saying she could go to the moon. UCA owns her.
Oh, okay.
And so they will.
Okay, so she's not yours.
She is not mine.
Okay.
And we made that decision early on.
Okay.
I told Dr. Seymour that UCA should own her because they're probably going to be able to deploy her much better than I would.
Oh yeah, sure.
But I hope that she's going to have a good long life. And they've lasted, many of them we did before, they've lasted several years if you just put them up and dry them off.
Well, I hadn't thought about that. So okay. And how long, Gail contacted you many months ago, but how long did you actually work on it?
It took me about, I want to say about a month to kind of get the design going. And once I got the design going, I had to kind of put forth a little proposal to make sure we got the funding. So I put forth a proposal for approval by UCA and to make sure we had the funding. So Gail, I believe, presented that to folks. We were able to get the funding and approvals. Once that was done, I started working in earnest back with the fabricator.
Okay.
So that's
at that point, you know it's a go.
We know it's a go. The fabricator was like, "Yep, we're going," and we got them kind of established as a vendor and all that kind of stuff. So we went back and forth with the fabricator. It was pretty simple. I did a drawing. They sent me back renderings that they did of how it would look as an inflatable. We approved those. Then we went back and forth with colors.
Oh, yeah.
They actually print them out on the vinyl and mail them to you so you can like open them up and make sure that that's exactly, like skin tone and stuff like that. It's really important. So you want to make sure that it's right. Once that was approved, it took them about, I'd say, 2 months to actually fabricate.
So really quicker than I.
Yeah, really quick.
So tell me about the color choices.
Well, that was pretty standard. I mean, I went through a lot of iterations before I settled down on it. And having had a lot of experience with murals and stuff like that, you know, you make it light colored, white dress, light green. Those colors will last in sunshine for a long time and won't fade. Like if it was bright red, that would fade real quickly.
Yeah.
So there was some of that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah.
But really, I just kind of went back. Her dress really resembles like Greco-Roman attire. And her skin tone, I just made a little bit darker, kind of like, you know, if you're kind of in the sun all the time, basically. That's really all the thinking I did around it. Then the Luna moth, that was the wings, those colors are just, you know, innate to a Luna moth wing. It was a little bit tricky trying to get those rendered in the printing that they do on the vinyl because it just tends to be real bright. You know, everything they do is just tends. So I had them kind of tone it down a little bit till we kind of got to that sort of natural Luna moth.
Yeah.
And it works pretty well in person, I must say. It does not read like, you know, it should be at a car dealership. It looks like a
Good.
It looks like something else that was handmade and thoughtfully colored.
So did you see her, or did she come straight here?
They sent me a video to approve, and I did, and she was on the boat to get here because we had an early.
What do you mean on the boat?
Well, I mean on the truck.
Okay.
I meant figuratively. Yeah. There's no boat that comes.
Okay, I was gonna say.
No, speaking figuratively, it's not good. Yeah, they. It was a quick turnaround because initially we had told them we wanted it for like April 1st, but then we decided, well, we'd like to do an early one in Reynolds just to try her out.
Which was a couple of weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago, yeah. So we cut it back by a month. They were like, sure, we can do that. But then there wasn't much, like, I didn't drive up and see her before she left the warehouse.
So what did you think when you first saw her?
I could tell by the renderings they had sent me that it was going to be right on.
Yeah.
But when
I would think that there's some kind of sense of wonder or joy or.
I was surprised in the video that she popped up so quickly, number one. And then the actual construction of her, I was really surprised that they were able to get that humanoid figure.
Yeah.
Because again, it's just something that I didn't think was possible with this kind of technology, but they really did it. And I was impressed that, you know, she didn't look like the Michelin Man. You know, she was thin like a real person, and I'm still just blown away that they were able to do that.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, Morton, I'm excited about the rest of the week and next Monday, and I'm glad to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
And so you'll be just around on Monday at the Barcanale?
I'm going to be here every day, all the time.
Good.
I guess I should leave at some point, but I'll be here all the rest of the time.
Well, I'm sure people will want to come up and meet you and talk to you, and I'm sure you welcome that. So.
That'd be great. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on Spotlight, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll do something else, but probably not as cool as this. Thanks for joining us.